We are live and we are in person. This is happening. Welcome everyone to Care Art in Odd Places 2024. My name is Greg Newton. I am the co-founder, along with my lovely partner Donnie Jokum, of the Bureau of General Services Queer Division, which is the space you are in right now. And we're very happy to welcome Art in Odd Places back to the Bureau for another year of programming. Glad we're both still going strong. So the Bureau is an all-volunteer queer bookstore that Donnie and I founded in 2012, and we've been here at the LGBT Community Center since 2014. We have regular bookstore hours Wednesdays through Sundays from 1 to 7 p.m. And then we often stay open later when we have events such as this, which we often do. So if you're not already on our email list and you would like to be, you can sign up for that at the back of the room or on our website, which is bgsqd.com. Those 5 easy to remember letters that are all around you. As an all-volunteer bookstore, we depend on sales and donations to keep this machine going. So I'm going to pass a bag around. If you're able to donate, we very much appreciate it. If you'd rather support us by buying books, we encourage you to do that. If you're just overflowing with cash and you want to buy books and donate, that's great too. But we don't usually attract those people. Stay away. You can also give on Venmo. There's a QR code here, or if you're watching online, you can find us on Venmo at BGSQD. So I'll pass that around. And before I bring Ed up here, I wanted to read a land acknowledgement. So the Bureau acknowledges that our organization operates on the unceded land of the Munsee Lenape. We encourage you to join the Bureau in signing up to make a monthly donation to the American Indian Community Houses Mannahatta Fund. The Mannahatta Fund, according to its website, is an invitation to all settlers and non-native people who wish to acknowledge the legacy of theft and genocide that comprise the history of New York City and the United States. And you can find out more at mannahattafund.org. And I also want to read a statement of solidarity with the people of Palestine. So as queer people, we know the pain of being cast out. We have been and continue to be despised by many, even by our own parents, families, and communities of origin. This reality evokes in many of us a deep empathy with others who are likewise seen not as fully human, but as problems to be solved, questions for which the answer is ultimately elimination and erasure. As we watch the ongoing genocide of Palestinians by the State of Israel, carried out with the full support of our own government and funded by our tax dollars, we witness the inevitable results of defining a people solely as a threat to the safety and well-being of those deemed inherently worthy of life. This horror compels us to speak out not only against the current bombardment and siege of Gaza by the State of Israel, but against the historical and ongoing violent displacement of Palestinians by Zionists and the conditions of occupation and apartheid under which Palestinians have been forced to live for over 75 years. In our longing for a very different reality, we take inspiration from the words of Jose Esteban Munoz, who wrote, "Queerness is essentially about the rejection of a here and now and an insistence on potentiality or concrete possibility for another world." And those words are from his 2009 book, Cruising Utopia, which I highly recommend and we sell. Now, if you would please give a warm welcome to Ed Woodham, the founder of Art in Odd Places.
Thank you. Thanks everyone for coming. I didn't know I was going to actually have to speak tonight. The team told me about an hour ago that we need you to introduce Patricia, and I said I just did a gummy. So I wrote down some notes, and then I lost the notes. Improvising. Thank you, Donnie and Greg, for this comforting, warm, loving, safe space. For how many years?
12.
12 years. Thank you. This is Art in Odd Places 19th year. And I'm gonna let maybe Patricia and Chris say a little bit more, say something later about Art in Odd Places, so I won't go all ad nauseum on you. It's our 19th year. Tomorrow we're from University Place on 14th Street to 7th Avenue, and then from 7th Avenue to the Hudson River, basically, on Sunday. So without further ado, thank you all the artists for participating, and this is what makes it happen. Thanks for the volunteers that are here. Thanks for the photographers. It's a collective effort of taking art into the street. Oh, first, I forgot to introduce our incredible, stellar producer, Robin, in the back here. Robin. And our two amazing curators, co-curators, Patricia and Christopher.
I just want to know if the gummies are being passed out after the.
Bring your own gummies.
Bring your own.
Thank you. Well, we thought Ed needed to introduce because he is our esteemed dreamer, visionary leader, and the creator of this incredible festival. And we are Patricia, Miranda, myself, and Christopher Kasparic, who've participated as artists. Both I participated as like support volunteers for Christopher's projects, and then we participated as collaborative artists and are just huge fans of the festival and of Ed, and we're really sort of gobsmacked and honored to be asked. And Ed said, when we agreed, he said, congratulations and apologies. Let everybody know that I tried to talk you out of it. It's been a labor of love and art and care, and the team has been incredible. I just want to acknowledge everyone, Ed and Robin and Valentina and Raphael and Aga and Lori and Michelle. And sorry to anyone I'm missing, but it's been an amazing team. And you know, the team is indicative of the theme of care, because it's been a really incredible, wonderful, ethical, beautiful, caring group, trying to think thoughtfully through these challenges every step of the way. And so we're really honored, Ed, beyond honored to have been asked to do this. And also want to thank these incredible artists who have been willing to take the trips from many places all around the world. We have international artists and local artists and national artists. And, you know, we're artists ourselves, and we really appreciate the amount of work and care and dedication and time and all that everybody has put in to be part of this festival. And so that we thank all of the artists. Thank you so much. We're really so eternally grateful. The theme came about, the curators each time, Ed invites different curators, so it's a different team each year, and asks us to come up with a theme. And in a time that is as fraught and polemic as the one that we're in, we really thought a lot about what kind of spaces we wanted to create. And in keeping with the idea that art in odd places is exactly what it says, to find art in odd places. Ed's belief that, you know, art should be everywhere, that it should be everywhere. It shouldn't just be in white box spaces where there are exclusions and passages and doors you have to go through, that it should be found everywhere. And even in the street, in an unorganized, not unorganized, very organized, but in unexpected spaces where you might not think you would find art. And we thought about the ways that people encounter art in odd places, which is, you know, it's New York. So you're walking down the street and you see someone doing something interesting. Well, that's New York. But then you see another person doing something interesting and you're like, wait, what's going on? And then you see a third person and a fourth person and you're like, there's something happening here. And that has been our experience. And one of the things that we absolutely love about the festival, that it brings art into the streets. It opens up an egalitarian space, a space that everyone can engage in. And we thought a lot about how to be that kind of space for 14th Street and for as representatives of art in odd places. And again, we thought of care as we thought of care in all of its complications. What do we care for? How do we care? How can we care? How difficult is it to care? When can we not care? How much can we care? You know, what does care mean? What are the challenges, the complications, and even the oppressions of care, right? It's a very complicated idea. And in a time where I found today, I mean, we were thinking about this, but it was really confirmed today that I find that, you know, the discourse in this country is really flat. It turns us into really binary, flat things. I like this, I don't like this. We're for you or against you. And there are things to be really for and really against, absolutely. And yet, we also can exist in a space where we might meet together, a careful space. And art is the kind of thing that can do that. I think of art, and Chris and I, thinking through this theme, talked a lot about this, of art as a place, a space of empathy, where you get to see the world through another person's eyes. You get to step into that space, you get to share that space. And that is a space where we can meet inside what is a very fraught and complex and difficult, challenging time. So that was really the theme, you know, how we sort of thought through the theme. So those are some of the things that we were thinking about. And it was really confirmed. People of New York are amazing, as everybody who is here, so open-hearted, right? You scratch the surface and people are just so open. And that was our experience today with the artists and with the people that we met on the street. With that, we're going to have the artists say a bit about their projects. I think that we want you to introduce the project and that you're working on today. So I will say that the website has extensive bios, you know, links to websites. These are all incredible artists. This is we would love to have every single, there's 70+ projects in the festival this year. And we would have loved to have every single one, but we would be here through next week. So we have a few artists here who are going to speak briefly about their work, about their project, but I hope you will go to the websites and look up all the artists, because it's really an extraordinary community of humans and people who've really thought so much about this theme of care and are embodying it. We wanted to embody the act of care and the space of care in the street. So we're going to have the artists introduce their project very briefly. Again, we could probably talk all night, but very briefly, and what they were doing during the festival and how they think about it is in relationship to the theme of care. And Christopher's going to introduce the artists that are here tonight briefly, but really we had to truncate these bios so much, because when you have extraordinary artists like this, you know, we could talk an hour about each one. So thank you all for being here and being willing to kind of come up and talk about your work.
All right, yeah, briefly is key here, because you give me a mic and it's rarely brief, but they gave me a script, so unless you all want me to go off script, do you? No, okay, good choice. I gotta take off my glasses now so I can read this. These are for seeing far away. Okay, so the first artist that I would like to introduce you all to and give a little information about is Theda Sandiford. And she is known for her unique approach to fiber and installation art, drawing inspiration from the profound impact of racial trauma. She skillfully combines fibers and found materials using techniques such as weaving, coiling, knotting, and jewelry making. The materials she meticulously gathers, along with contributions from the community, serve as a representation of collective memory, forming what she termed social fabric. This results in a vibrant tapestry of interconnected stories. That's hard. And the second artist is Victoria Boulay. And Victoria lives and works in Buenos Aires. She has a degree in visual arts from Argentina's National University of the Arts, specializing in engraving and printmaking, a master's degree in public culture, and specialized in the art curatorship and contemporary theories program at the Center for Art of the National University of La Plata. And she was part of the 11th edition of the Mangler, M-A-N-G-L-A-R, am I pronouncing that right? Mangler Art Analysis Program and the first edition of the Musco Artist Residency. In addition to her artistic practice, she also works at the Loretta Museum of Spanish Art. And that's Victoria down there. And the third artist we have on the panel is Deirdre McLeod. Deirdre has a long-standing interest in how those who live in cities experience them. She is currently a PhD candidate in geosciences at the University of Edinburgh. Her thesis examines how artistic practices such as drawing and movement-based strategies might contribute to ways in which we can better understand undervalued spaces and places in the peripheries of cities. And then our fourth artist that I'd like to introduce, Thomas Diathas. Did I get that right? Good, good. You weren't here for me to ask the pronunciations. I don't want to butcher it. Thomas is a queer Greek-Dominican multidisciplinary performance artist and educator. His diverse background in education, cinema, linguistics, and performing arts has given rise to a unique hybrid approach that challenges traditional notions of art and arts education. Additionally, he's dedicated to investigating new educational methods that promote a non-individualistic and non-hierarchical approach to knowledge acquisition, transcending the constraints of capitalism. That's Thomas. We gotta talk. And then finally, last but certainly not least, we have Alex Buchan. And Alex earned his BFA from The Ohio State University in sculpture. His work focuses on interconnectivity and identity through a lens of a queer ecology on a warming planet. He uses largely reclaimed materials, which is reflected in the fungal entanglement where the lichen likers currently find themselves, which is a clue to the fact that he's part of the lichen likers collective. And so those are our 5 artists, and I'll hand this back to Patricia to remind the prompt.
Okay, yeah, just very briefly introduce your project and its theme of care. Do we want to just ask the question now?
Yeah.
Okay, so and then we thought, we want to open it up to the audience and make sure we have some time for discussion. We'll see. So speak briefly so we have time. But one of the questions, we just want to start with a question that we can start off the discussion with, which is really related to what happened today, our first day of the festival. And if you wanted to speak again briefly about an interaction, an exchange, an experience with the audience, with the people of the street that was particularly meaningful for you or related to the theme in any way, just something that touched you in some way, that felt significant, maybe changed your project, maybe it shifted your perspective. So that's our starting question, and then time willing, we'll open it up to this lovely community for other questions. All right, thank you. Want to start with Theda?
My group is leading a project we're leading an emotional baggage cart parade, and we're inviting people to release their emotional baggage in the carts. And I have the experience of, particularly on the train in New York, no one looks at anyone. And if you smile at them, they kind of look at you like, what you looking at? But today, rolling down the street with these shopping cart mobile installations with a group of people all wearing pageant sashes and with our little funky little hats, all these smiles were greeting me. People who are like looking down on their phone and they're like, what is that noise? And they look up and then there's this big beaming smile. And I grew up in New York and I do not have the experience of people smiling back at me. And today I got that. So I feel like I left New York a little better than it started. And it didn't require, gummies or even espresso, things that I normally would feel I need to kind of pick me up. It was just getting that back from people when their reaction to the emotional baggage part for it. It was wonderful.
I wanted to just ask you how deep those emotional baggage carts are, because they were asking, you can bring your emotional baggage there. I said, how big is this cart? How deep is this cart?
I mean, some of the things that people were sharing, I mean, I got notes that I haven't read yet, but and we were getting releases from people and they were willing to open up and talk. There was a woman that talked about the generational baggage of her grandmother committing suicide. There were people talking about abusive relationships. There were people talking about friends not talking to them anymore. There was a group of teenagers that came up and they were all supporting one another on talking about their stuff. And I'm like, wow, teenagers do that now? Like, I was really blown away. I'm gonna sleep better tonight than I did the night before. Because I feel like, maybe there's actually hope in this world.
My name is Alex Buchanan. I'm part of the Lichen Likers. We are a collective organism who insists on a future that is non-human centric. We are this weekend performing the radical act of caring about the non-human citizens of New York. We are a group of enthusiastic environmentalist artists who like to study lichen as an example model community, as a mutualistic multi-species endeavor that allows algae and fungi and bacteria to conquer the planet and live in extreme environments that they would have never been able to before. And it's just a joy to be able to share that resilience and just true admiration for something that is not like us with everyone around. It's great.
Hello, my name is Deirdre MacLeod, and as you might be able to hear, I'm not from New York. I am from Edinburgh in Scotland, and I am very pleased to be here. And it's a place that I don't know. So my project is a drawing project, and I want to use drawing as a way of trying to get to know 14th Street. The project is called You Are Here, and You Are Here is something you often see written on maps, at places in parks or on city corners. And often when you see that label, You Are Here, you really don't know where you are. You've got lost. I have got lost. And so I wanted to use that title as a way of thinking about what it means to be somewhere. Not only geographically, but also, I suppose, emotionally and psychologically. So You Are Here is also about being present in space. And I'm using a map which is a pointless map. It's pointless because it's a map of the Yorkshire Dales, which is in England. It's also pointless because it has holes in it. And so it really can't be used in any meaningful sense. But what the holes allow me to do is to see the ground of 14th Street. And I have been using those holes to look very carefully at the ground and to draw on that map so that by the time I finish, having worked my way along 14th Street, this map will be a drawing, and it will be a drawing of my experience of 14th Street, but not only my experience, it's the experience of people who have sat down and drawn with me today. And so my experience of care has been the way in which drawing can be used as a device to bring people together, to care together about a place, to get to know each other in silence, but through the medium of a pencil, a pen, and the act of putting something on paper. Well, my native language is not English, so you'll forgive me if I read. I wanted to tell you about my project. It's called Flanner Philscape, and it is a performance that dives into the emotional landscape of the city. This is not just about the landmarks, the buildings, the streets. It's about the feelings that connect us as we navigate through urban life. I ask bypassers a question: how does the city make you feel? And as they answer, I write the response down onto flashcards. I give one to them. I keep one myself. And this keepsake isn't just a tangible piece of our conversation or just a way to hold on to that moment. It's Deirdre has one. It's a reminder of the words. It's a validation. It encourages a deeper connection to their own emotions and the community around them. It's a way to show that we care and we are listening to how they feel. I plan on collecting these stories to create an archive and then use that archive to transform it into an emotional landscape, maybe in as a mural or as a fancy, some kind of publication afterwards. So I am also encouraging to everyone to keep in touch. And well, today there was a very nice experience that I remember. Two girls, I approached two girls, and one of them said that she used to live in New York City, but then moved to San Francisco. So the word that she used to describe her feeling was nostalgic, and she got a little emotional. And that was a moment where when I realized that the performance was enabling that kind of emotional connection that I was looking for. So I'm very thankful for that.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Thomas Diarfas. I'm originally from Greece. I currently live in Berlin, and it's my first time in New York, and I wasn't expecting it to be that big. I mean, why not at the same time? Yeah, that's why I was late. No, I wasn't late because of that. I was late because I was eating KFC when I was hungry. Yeah, it was very it was like very intense today. We performed for almost 8 hours. My piece is called Opera. It's a series of self-care practices that I've collected from private spaces and public spaces at the same time, from people that are into arts. It can be like art students, it can be professors, tutors, or it can just be working in the sector, and or like normal people that are not artists. Because artists are not normal people, apparently. And so actually, it's a conversation between performing those self-care practices in public spaces, while once they were like in private spaces, and the ones that are like being executed in public spaces, we're trying to put them in private spaces and see how they interact and what new information we're bringing. So today we were in 14th Street and 2nd Avenue in the corner. It was crazy. When I started this project, I decided to have a banner that says "We deserve rest," which is from a song that I was listening to by Fever Ray, which is a Swedish band, that says "We deserve rest, lovelier than diamonds." And I was saying all the time when I was studying performance practices that this is such a capitalist view of seeing things when it comes to like teaching performing arts. You have to be big, you have to be like the one and only you have, and it's not about the community. So I was constantly being late at class, I was not obeying, I was doing my things, I was prioritizing my personal mental health and my physical health. And it suddenly, from being just stubborn, it became a methodology. I started like researching with others. And we have collected like more than 100 self-care practices. We've performed in public spaces and in private spaces in the Netherlands, in Berlin, in Greece, and now in New York. And today was interesting because not knowing sometimes is good. So I wasn't aware of where I was, and people were really they need to talk. And I thought that this is New York. People need to talk and people need to communicate. and people need to look in the eyes, and people need to express their emotions, which apparently after having conversations with some New Yorkers, we realized that it's not. And there were like the first two people that they approached me, the first one said, if you want to rest, go somewhere else. This is not about resting. New York is not about resting. But then he stayed for like more than half an hour. Yeah, but let's discuss about that. So who is we? Let's see who is we behind this we. Let's deserve, but why deserve and not desire? Or why not want? Or why rest and not something else? Care, you know? So he happened to be like a philosophy teacher, professor. And we exchanged emails and he said, by the way, there is a philosopher who would be like really agreeing with you, so I can send you some details of it. And which was also like my thing with academia. If I say it is not enough, someone else should say it that has more power. And the second one was a lady who said, are you a communist? And I said, excuse me, what? She said, are you a communist? Because this is very communist, and I don't like communism. I don't like progressive things. And I said, okay, are you gonna vote? And I said, no, I don't live here. You should vote. And I said, okay. And she told me who to vote for. You know who she told me to vote for. I said, okay, thank you very much. I said, you're a good person, by the way. I said, thank you very much. And take care of yourself. Thank you. Bye. So this definitely changed the way I understand whatever I do. I was speaking about that when we talk about artistic research is in the streets, not in the laboratories of academia. And I think that's like before reading my next book, first I go to the streets and see and I can find people that have like rich material to work with. Yeah, that's what New York gave me so far. But I said that I don't want to talk to anybody like after Sunday, but after that I'll go again back to the streets. Yeah.
Amazing. Thank you. It's interesting because the impression is that New Yorkers are very, tough and don't want to talk and all that, but the experience is that, yes, we're walking around, meeting a million people every day. You can't smile and say hi to every single person. You'd be exhausted in a half an hour. So, but if you kind of stop and talk to someone, even, people are dying for a place to just have a conversation. That was one of the things. People just want to open up and speak. I was doing a project, I was experiencing one of the projects, which is a labyrinth project, and I think Shira is here. And I was walking in a labyrinth, there was another woman, we were walking in opposing directions and we kind of met in the middle. And there was that awkward moment where you're like, I don't know, do I move left or right? What do we do? And we just sort of looked at each other and we smiled and we just like clasped our arms. And it was just this beautiful moment. And then she stayed for like a half an hour later and we heard all these amazing stories about her life and we all were hugged in the end and, went on our way and Shira exchanged all kinds of information with her. So I feel that not just in New York, but I feel like in this country now, we actually really want to talk to one another. We just don't know how. There aren't spaces to do it. So does anyone want to share any other interactions? And then before we open it up to the audience that you had today?
No, it was a finance.
No, it was a financer, yes.
The only thing I'd say is that that's not just a New York problem.
Yes.
It's an urban problem. And I think that thing you just said is, how do we do this? I think it's that sort of thing. If we can find a way, we can share that and it can solve that issue beyond New York, beyond America.
Yeah. I think art can be one of the things that does. Do you have any questions or should we open it up? Anybody in the audience? I know that there's a bunch of the artists here that might want to say something to that, and anyone have questions? Yeah. Do you want to? Should I'll do the like. The Oprah.
You get a car, you get a car.
Thank you. My name's Bon Mott, and I've got a question for Alex. I researched the book Sexing the Non-Human, and I know that mushrooms have thousands of genders, but I'm not sure about lichen. I wondered if you could speak about that.
It's okay.
I think of lichen less as an individual that can be gendered and more as a community of organisms. For what it's worth, I also think of humans that way. Because if you look at a microscopic level, we're literally more bacteria than things that carry our DNA. Like our DNA is the minority within our own bodies. So once we recognize that, we realize we're already in a whole host of queer relationships. Like, those are non-binary bacteria swimming through our veins, I promise.
Yes.
And like, so lichen, I think of less as something that we can project our gender onto, and more of something that we need to be looking at and realizing that we can take ours off.
Beautiful. Thank you. Anybody else wanna just, yes?
Alex, could you follow up and tell a little bit more, like, concretely about what your project was? Because I didn't quite get it.
Oh, yeah, my apologies. Our project, we just got in. I traveled from Ohio to this room, so we have not had a chance to participate in the performance yet. But we have a fungal web made from recycled and reclaimed fabrics and plastics that we use to connect both our performers and our audience. To identify ourselves as the artists versus the participants, we wear living garments. So we will have scarves of black plastic that have flowing foliage down the sides. We will also be wearing lime green ponchos, and you will definitely see us by the, again, just sprawling tangle of fabric strips as we travel through the space and sort of introduce everyone who will listen to the magic of lichen.
That's amazing. So for those who don't know, the projects that are intimate, like Deirdre's, one person in this very close, looking at the ground, and then there are, how many people are in your crew?
Dina's actually larger than we are. We're only like 7.
Dina, how many are in your crew?
16.
16. She's an amazing organizer, let me tell you.
I'm tired.
So the projects will be performing all through. Yeah, we are. The projects will be performing all throughout the weekend at different times in different parts, and they're, big, grand, extravagant projects, and then very intimate, singular projects. So yeah, Robin, have a question?
I have a question. That's a 2-part question. One, what is it about the theme of care as artists that you responded to? Why did you like this theme and want to participate? And 2, when you were on the street, you'll find out tomorrow, did you have to mention that to people? Did you say what this theme was, or did they just, did people just naturally want to participate with you regardless? Well, anyone can answer that.
We're all wearing our pageant sashes, telling everyone what the project is, so people could see it and they make a judgment when they see emotional baggage. And then when they get close and they see the materials, and then when they start interacting with the performers, there were questions that came up, but then people immediately just wanted to, let me tell you my emotional baggage. and they just wanted to unload it. And then we're like, well, what is this thing about after they, and I said, oh, this is care. Oh, so I just did it, right? So I think, for me to want to participate, all my work is about creating safe space to talk about those uncomfortable things that come up. And so be it emotional baggage or racial trauma or whatever you're dealing with. So for it, this was a natural. And so when Patricia mentioned it to me, I was like, oh yeah, I have to do this. Besides the fact that being from New York, seeing this festival for years and years and years and not knowing how to get into it, I'm like, this is what I do. So to finally be here is an absolute joy. Yeah.
I get called radical a lot. It's not really a label that I've ever super been comfortable with because I don't think I'm radical. I think I'm pragmatic. But when I look at my actions, the things that get called radical are caring. Like it's paying attention, it's giving a shit, it's putting the work in, it's showing up. Those are the radical actions that we take. And so to have the theme of care just be really spotlighted rather than, as it typically is, just sort of disregarded. Like care work is the most, or the least paid profession in the world. Like nobody cares about the people who care. And so like having the opportunity to really center caring, and especially with the project I'm involved with, caring about something other than yourself, something that doesn't look like you, something that you can't even meaningfully interact with. Caring about it is weird, it's radical, it's the first step on unlearning how to stop caring.
Well, radical care everywhere.
Wonderful natural die.
Well, I think maybe what I'm gonna say, really glad you went first, because you've said a lot of what I would like to say. What I'm trying to work on at the moment in my own practice is the role of drawing, the role of artistic practice in the field as field work. What is it that drawing and artistic practice can do to change how we look at environments and landscapes? And I think that's something that I've struggled with, and I've struggled to persuade other people of, who are geographers, who think they have all the answers because they think in a very particular way about landscapes. But I think the answer is that drawing can make you notice. It can make you give a shit, actually. It can make you see things. And I think it can make other people see things about environments, because you slow down. You have to engage with an environment. You have to actually sit there and learn about a space through drawing. And I didn't have to talk about that today, or at least I chose not to talk about it perhaps. But I think what I was trying to do was enact that process by asking people to sit with me and draw, and to draw through the holes in the map what they could see. And so by doing that, without realizing, they were beginning to care about the city streets, I hope, in a way, or at least notice them and perhaps remember them. And through that remembering, simply care about them. So I think it was an osmotic process, perhaps.
Well, I try to choose projects in the intersection between arts and education, because I believe in art and education as tools for transformation, and transformation is social justice. And I think that working towards social justice is to care. You know, you have to care to realize that you need to be an active player in the system, to try to put your own grain of sand towards that change, towards changing conditions for your immediate community, but your environment as well. I am from Buenos Aires, Argentina, and we are facing a very harsh time nowadays with our current government that is cutting away rights from all the vulnerable communities in our country. So I strongly than ever believe that you know, that social justice is to care, and that's why I designed this project.
I think you said everything, but yeah, so I was gonna add that after you talked, I was thinking about this idea of arts education that is actually creating conscious citizens, and not something different, not something less than that or more than that, active and conscious citizens. And I understand care as the response, or as care is as not to care about the careless politics of power systems, of power, let's say, is about going beyond and against at the same time of what the people who run this world thing that we should do is it's your right to say no to what hurts you, and it's your right to say no to what hurts to the other, like the other people, and to create new worlds, and to have the guts to create new worlds. And yeah, I think that's it. For me, it was more like the moment I was seeing my actual classmates getting sick from what we were experiencing, or my colleagues when we were like getting sick because we had to rehearse for a better piece or for a better whatever in order to succeed. And the moment I said that maybe we should create a different system, an alternative system, a community, as you mentioned, a community that goes beyond this mainstream economic system, maybe we can make it. We never made it because we didn't believe in ourselves first, and we didn't believe in the community, but we're in the process. And yeah, I will say that, and I'll close. An activist from Congo that gave a beautiful lecture last week said that it is the time for us to believe that we can do better and we can do something else than what is being told to us, and change our genes. And yeah, that was beautiful. And this is how I understand care. Yeah.
That's beautiful. I think that you can see from these artists and the many other projects that this project, I think Art Not Places, as envisioned by Ed, means that art can be an invitation as opposed to a commodity. It can be a participation, it can be a community, it can be an action, and it can be a space of beauty, respite, protest, resistance, rest, all of those things, that art can create those spaces. So anybody else have any other questions? Anybody else? Or we can come back to you? Okay, yes. Just yell really loud.
Yell really loud. It's interesting to hear about your projects and what your intentions were, and I'm curious, after the experience, I know one of you hasn't had it yet, if sort of what you were hoping people would walk away feeling or thinking about, if that changed after actually interacting with people and doing your projects.
I'm giving postcards to people that we're meeting on the street, because not everyone is ready with their composed thoughts of what emotional baggage they have. And so I've done this activation in other places. What usually happens is they come back to me in the mail. And so for months from now, I will be receiving postcards. I'll be happy to. Yeah, so I'll be receiving postcards back from people about, and I want to add something else to what I said, or I wasn't sure what I wanted to say. I needed, because people want to get it right. And it really, it's your emotions. It's just what's there. That's what you come up. But so often, at least in my generation, we were told to swallow that. You don't share that. Things like, I'll give you something to really cry about. Like, that doesn't really, for me, that's there all the time. So when I'm interacting with people, some people, particularly the teenagers I interacted with today, they were all out there talking about it. I was so impressed that they were able to come up with it so quickly. But some of the older people that we met on the street, they were like, can I have a postcard? I need to think about this. And those are the people who are going to send me little notes, probably months from now.
I can't speak to performing it in New York. But
Tomorrow?
I will tomorrow. So I'll be back here tomorrow night. If you want to meet me, we can discuss. No, when we performed it in Columbus on the streets, I did learn a lot about how the public views like art, performance art. Like I feel like as artists, we surround ourselves with other artists and like art enthusiasts and people who will put up with us just talking nonstop about art. And so like actually being out in public and doing performance work is really just so valuable. Like we all talk about community building. We all talk about getting out there and changing the world with our art, but you can't do it unless you're talking to people who aren't artists. And so like being on the streets, I think is going to be one of the most valuable things. And I am in Columbus, I was utterly shocked at how people were just willing to receive artwork. Like I said, we get stuck in this art world and this art speak and these art theoretical things that we think about nonstop, probably to our own detriment and the detriment to our artwork, if we're being real. But they don't have that baggage. They come and they're able to discern what we're able to say. They don't need everything that we have. We're able to give them what they need. And that's a really nice thing about performance.
I don't have a lot to say. I think what I am going to say is that I've just told you a lot about my project because I had to, because I was asked to come and speak. The truth is that when I start a project, I go out there and I don't expect a lot of it and I don't think a lot about it in advance, and that is deliberate. Because I leave it open and I leave chance as an ingredient. And so I don't know what will happen. I don't know I'll get out of this or what other people will get out of it. But I know that something will happen. And what I tend to do afterwards is I write about it and I reflect on it. And then I will, through that kind of processing and writing, it will take me somewhere. And that might be something that I can then pass back to you privately as it's not an output, but it's a something. It's a transformation of me, I think, through the project that is maybe a gift back to Art in Odd Places.
Well, I think that during the creative process of the project, of a performance where you have to interact with others, you cannot go too rigid or expect a certain result, because that's, you just annulling the other. I don't know if that's the right word to say it. I think that every invitation has to be just that, and leave it open enough to welcome the chance and to let other with their own agency, with their own autonomy, to give back what they want to give you during your performance. Today, I remember a man who approached me, and he seemed to be the doorman of one of the buildings I was standing in front of, and I saw by the look in his face that he wanted me to, to move a little, or he wanted to know what I was doing. And I just invited him to participate in the performance. And I saw him going away with the card and his feeling. And he was like, I saw the eyes of someone so happy, like a child. And I think that by being able to remove that expectation, to leave your interaction as open as possible, and your heart and your time and your body as open as possible to what the other has to give back, is what it's the richest about performance work.
Yeah, I mean, I can think that we can say about big things, about changing society, about deconstructing worlds, etc. But I can think of today that some small changes, some people just reading the banner and saying, go get some sleep, or yes, yeah, that's it, or just taking a picture and smiling. And it's just a smooth reminder that you deserve rest no matter what you do. And yeah, maybe they thought about it already, but yeah, they weren't expecting it to be there today. And I'll just mention something that happened, and that's for me the most successful impact that I had on someone. That someone really fast. Oh my God, I like this banner. What is it about? But a bit quickly because I'm gonna lose my buzz. So I said, yeah, and I was like, do you have like a maybe like a business card or something? I have just a paper with the description of the performance. Does have your email? Yeah. Okay, bye. He lost his bus, and he had to read the paper. So I won. So yeah, so he was just there at the stop reading it. Then he closed it, and then he started reading a book, which was what I was actually doing during the performance when he stopped me. And that was very nice. Yeah, Thomas Bass 1-0, you know.
That because one of the things, even though a lot of these projects are thinking about social justice and change and all of that, we live in a time where so much of what we do is instrumentalized and commodified and, you know what I mean, turned into product. Our thoughts, our desires, our feelings are turned into an algorithm so that we can be sold something and something. And I really believe in the kind of power of the useless gesture, you know, the futile gesture, something that doesn't seem to have, you know, you're not actually liking, you're not, you know what I mean, you're drawing a useless map, you know, you're not actually an emotional baggage. Well, you kind of are an emotional baggage. You know, these are not things that have a kind of commodity result. And I feel like our bodies are constantly turned into capitalist objects and commodified objects. And the power of something that just invites you to think or to pay attention and to can be really transformational. And I don't know about anyone else here, but I feel really manipulated by all of those technologies and algorithms and things that are constantly telling me, well, why are you doing that? It has to have a result. It has to have a result that I can measure. It has to have a, you know, it has to be able to be sold or whatever. And I don't think you can always measure, like you were talking about, right? You have this thing where we're paying attention very slowly, very intimately, and maybe we don't know what the outcome will be, but it's profound. It's really profound. So that's, yeah. Any other questions from the audience? Or I shall continue to philosophize. Questions? I know there are other artists who've been performing and they're here in the audience. Does anyone in the here want to say anything? Or we can sing. Yeah, you had a go for it.
I'm just thinking about community, working in community as a type of pedagogy. And Thomas, I was wondering if you could speak to, but maybe everyone, about the size of community. I'm just thinking of Genesis Peerage saying that the importance is building communities of small communities of people you can trust, and then that all expands. It's, you know, it's a bit like bacteria, and it expands to a bigger community. But as a community, as a type of pedagogy, I was wondering if you think about that.
I don't know if people heard, did you hear the question?
Yeah.
Community as a kind, working in community as a kind of pedagogy, and then the notion of notions of scale, I guess, right? That does working in a very small scale to build trust as opposed to working on grander scales.
And also referencing Genesis Peerage. Yeah.
Referencing Genesis Peerage, yes. You want to say?
Yeah, well, it's quite challenging working with the community because, first of all, the grading system of many of universities around the world, they cannot actually put it in, like, they cannot grade a community of students. It has to be individual projects. You cannot graduate from a master's or like a bachelor's degree on a group project. And community projects are not that present in the curricula of the universities. It's mostly like individual artists that are being presented, or their work is being presented and taught as examples, successful examples. And if we look around, we can see that most of the museums have individual artists as their great example of like the greatest artists. So it's quite challenging to go beyond that. But I would say that there's always space to create tools and to inspire for individual community projects. It always has to do like one student who is working with a community, and then they're going to graduate with this community project, but it's only one student. And also, So when it comes to actually like the pragmatic thing of like how one can study and get a diploma with a community project, this is impossible. But there are like I would use the No School manifesto it's from the Netherlands where I also studied, and they kind of like blur the rules of education. It's like when you can come and when you can live, who decides the curricula, who decides what's going to happen in the classroom, and this is all the students. So it has to do also with the hierarchies of like who teaches and what. Some small examples, but still, I would say that if it's not going to change the grading system, it's always like something that is not in the end is going into like individualism back again. But I would say that yeah, first step would be to change the hierarchies between the student and the tutor, would be to opt for the community.
I'll just say, I feel like that's part of the reason why there are so many, well, I would say Art in Odd Places is a community pedagogy, let's just say. It's not an institution. I know Ed's very adamant about that, and yet it is an active, pedagogical structure. And I think there's so many alt ed organizations that are coming up, at least in the US, I don't know, I think probably around the world, but I can speak for, here, that are outside of academia because of those limitations. People forming alternate organizations, educational organizations, artistic organizations, and all of that, where they can build a structure that reflects their own ethical framework of how they want to build a practice and how to move in a sustainable and ethical practice, artistic or otherwise. So, some of you work in academia can maybe.
As someone who's currently working on my MFA, I can absolutely with 100% confidence say down with the institution. The academy is stifling. And like the reason I say that is because it does inhibit community building. It places knowledge as an individual responsibility. When you are learning and you're taking your test and you're defending an idea in a debate, you are saying, me as an individual, I am the source of knowledge now. I have this knowledge, it is mine, I'm going to give it to you. And I fundamentally disagree with that. I don't think that that's the way that knowledge should work. I don't think it's the way that knowledge actually does work, because nobody learns anything on their own. All pedagogy is community-based pedagogy. Like every time where you're transferring knowledge, that's a collective act. And we need to pay attention to that because it's more powerful than we realize.
Lichen as pedagogy.
Every day.
Totally. Yes.
I just wanted to follow up on that about the community, because today as I'm watching this festival and seeing, these individual artists, especially you, Deidre, like sitting on the sidewalk, drawing a map, and even you, Thomas, being on the corner there by yourself, I kept thinking, I wonder how you all felt, but then I kept remembering that you were part of a larger thing, that you're part of this, as you say, Art in Odd Places community. So having that knowledge must have felt really good to you all, and that you weren't just by yourselves, But I know that is my take on it, and that's what I noticed today.
Just come back on, just one thing on scale. I think scale is really interesting because there's an assumption that things are good if they can be scaled up. And actually that isn't always the case. As I work, someone who's really important to me is Anna Tsing, who's an anthropologist, and she wrote a fantastic book called The Mushroom at the End of the World, which I'd imagine you might know.
I've heard of it, I haven't read it yet.
Haven't read it, you should. Because it's very much about looking at how you look closely and you follow things in the environment and make connections to other places. So just to come back to Robin's point, yeah, I sat there. I was terrified when I started today. I thought last year was bad, but this year was worse. Actually, when I got started and I was down on the ground and I was, I knew I'd feel vulnerable and prone and very alone. but I did exactly what you said. I remembered all the people that I'm connected to back home in other countries and here too, who are interested in this sort of practice, because between us, we form a network. And through that, through these tiny little practices that are unscalable, we create something which cannot be scaled up, but actually is more powerful because it's made of these tiny little parts that are granular and about the very local.
Here, here.
Maybe I can add something that I wasn't performing alone. It was Alex Karapanas who's there back there. And he was performing he was performing with me in another corner. And then Cole joined and instead of following self-care practices, we started talking about New York and politics and gentrification and how everything is connected to care because they are from New York. So they gave us a bit of idea where we were performing exactly and the history of the place we were performing. It was really nice. And I just want to mention Sarah Ahmed and all the lectures after Sarah Ahmed quit academia, and even before, I would say, all the bibliography and mostly the book Complained, which actually shows exactly how academia reacts when something is going wrong inside academia. And it has to do a lot with actually trying to sabotage community, every possible community that can be formed that's going to react against what's happening in academia. And yeah, and thumbs up to what you said. Yes.
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 We had another question. Yeah. Just
So
yell, we're
on
like-
the theme of community technology, I participated in several art in our places, several years. And so for me, one of the most exciting and pleasurable things is seeing what everybody else is doing, all the other participants, and interacting with them.
Yeah, it's community for the artists as
yeah.
well as community, in New York. And
Right.
that idea of something that can't be scaled up, I think is really powerful because it requires the kind of interactions that we're having, which are really, like you say, granular. If they're one-on-one or they're small, groups and all of that, it's really powerful. Yeah. Anyone else have any? Yes, you have someone in the back, yes.
Question earlier, you said if there were no more questions, we could sing.
Do you have do you have a song in mind? No, I just think one of the, singing together is a really powerful thing also, right? A powerful community act. So we can end with the song. We have any other questions? I don't.
We
Yeah,
have
no,
a
we're
song, but you can't sing. So take good care of yourself. You belong to me and also we have a hum along.
Okay, well, let's see if there's other questions and we'll close out with a hum along or a song.
Hum along.
But we're.
Hum along.
No more questions? All right, yeah, okay. Do you wanna lead us? Do you wanna come up and lead? Yes, in the song. I love it. Let's sing together. It's not only are we all in this room breathing together. Let me go back there.
Too late.
Sorry, but when we sing together, our bodies resonate, they vibrate,
Right.
and then we vibrate the room, and then this whole room vibrates,
Right.
all of us individually, and then as a community, we vibrate, and maybe we can take that vibration out into the festival the rest of the weekend and out into our lives as we move forward, so.
Absolutely,
Thank you.
exactly,
I
exactly.
need another one.
Okay, so everybody, this is everybody.
Yeah.
So.
It doesn't work unless it's everybody.
Everybody, okay? So we'll start and join in.
And whatever you feel, whatever comes to you, go for it.
Okay.
Thank you all so much, and unless someone else has a short song, we'll. I feel like you have to hum just a little bit longer than is entirely comfortable. But thank you all so much for being here. It's been amazing. Weekend. Thank you.